going crazy. Put peace on the hood, Mercedes. Young boys letting off 80, leaning next to a DR like Haiti. This ain't no Bonner, no Bailey. No internet clown gon' play me. Money ain't never gon' make me. I can win with a couple bucks like Brady. HGA baby, you cannot shame me. What they gon' pay me to shut my mouth?
What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Hope all is well with you guys. Listen, I'm so pumped for tonight's conversation. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be convicting. It's going to be enlightening. It's going to be challenging. We might cry some. We might laugh some. But our aim is to walk away just, convinced that God's way is the best way. I've got some friends with me today who love Jesus, who love each other, and just live to make him known in their cultural context. We got pastors Moni and Aiden with us. What is up, family? How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
What's up, y'all? Excited to be on here.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you are joining us and that you are here with us. Moni, last time you were on the podcast, we had a viral moment. Do you remember the episode that we had?
I wish we came back and did another one because I heard there was a lot of people who were talking about it.
A lot, yeah. It was the shut up and listen to Meek Mill. It was the episode where like, yo, Meek Mill's like talking about some real things, and Christians can't get over the fact that it's secular music. I think if we humbled ourselves and just received what he had to say, we'd be better people for it. But it was definitely a controversial topic and conversation, but that's what we do here on Shaping the Culture.
You know what's so crazy about that? We've come so far from that one conversation, in culture.
Yeah.
Like no one's having those conversations anymore.
Yeah. Right? Is secular music a sin or not? No. Dang, bro. That was our fight. That was our struggle. But I'm so glad we moved past it. A lot has changed for you and I. You are no longer single either. You are sitting next to your lovely wife. Rocked up.
Yep.
I need to know when this discussion happened because I want to go back and listen to it, actually.
This is like 2018, 2019. It was a minute ago.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'm glad for you to get back on the podcast with us, to go YouTube Live with me, and for you guys to both share your wisdom, your heart, your experiences, the things that the Lord has taught you guys. I'm ready to walk away edified. I got my notepad out. I'm here to take notes. I'm here to learn from you guys. And so it'll be good. Honored that you guys would be on the podcast. Aiden, I know this is your first time. Welcome. It's a pleasure and honor having you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having both of us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's do this real quick. For those who don't have a context to who you guys are, or for those who don't know who you are, introduce yourselves to the Shaping the Culture fam. Let us know a little bit about who you guys are, how long you guys been married, all that fun stuff.
Ooh. You want to go first?
We always do this. I'll go first.
Okay.
My name is Moni. I'm from San Jose, California. I'm a pastor out here. What else? My hobbies. I love working out. I love making music. I love recording videos and taking pictures. I love sports. What else? Yeah, that's who I am.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, my name is Eden, whichever works for you. But I am currently in San Jose as well, but I'm not from here. And neither is he. He said he's from San Jose. He's actually from Kansas. So let's just
let the truth be told.
That really quickly.
I've been here for 6 years. I think it's time to claim it.
I'm from the DMV, but like Maryland. And we have been married for 5 months, coming up on 6 in October, and recently moved to San Jose, of course, around February, before we got married, actually. And for fun, I also like making videos. I like reading. I like baking. I like going on walks. I love dogs. We're in the process of convincing him to let me get a dog. Pray for us, y'all, because I really want one. But
I just got over my fear of dogs, so I need some time. But
yeah. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Newlyweds.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. Yeah, I been following your journey for some time, and I've been keeping up with the whole process, and it's been really exciting. I've known Moni for a very long time, years. I think like a decade plus,
Yeah,
like
for
15
sure.
easily. So many memories in your house, in my house.
Yeah.
Your family is like family. Our parents know each other, and we've seen each other grow and evolve, and we've seen each other become the men that we are today. And one of the ways in which we've witnessed each other grow and evolve is, romantically. And you have, you were single, and then you were dating, and then quickly you were engaged. And so for those who don't know your journey, I don't know if you guys went viral or what it was, but I saw something on Instagram where Aiden was talking about how you guys were, from the moment you guys met to the moment you guys are engaged, it was like a 4-month block. And I was like, yo, this is classic Christian culture right here. But everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own testimony. And I want to learn, bro, like, how did you know, Aiden, how did you know that he was the one in such a short time? How did you guys meet? Did the Lord speak to you guys like, this is the one, marry him, marry her ASAP? Like, speak to that a little bit. I know you guys are still newlyweds and 5 months into the game, but before being married, break down that process for us.
So I feel like us and Christian relationships, and then also COVID relationships, have something in common, where we all got engaged very quickly. And we did meet like towards the end of COVID, and we were long distance. So that also projected the relationship to like be a little bit more, I guess you could call it, efficient.
I like that word.
But basically, I can speak to this a little bit, but I was kind of like finishing up this thing I started during COVID. I would call it kind of like a fast, but like I called it like a dating fast, but it wasn't really like I was dating during COVID. So it was like more, I guess I would have to describe it a little bit better. But basically, I was doing something for 6 months where I was like fasting. And then towards the end of that, my friend Lydia, who knew that I was finishing up this quote unquote dating fast, knew that she wanted to set up me with her friend Siri, like Siri's brother,
Her brother, yeah.
which is Moni.
Yeah.
And so how it happened was they went out to
First of all,
lunch.
that's a good friend, by the way. Shout out to Lydia. That's
Very.
nice. First of all, she waited until you were done fasting. Come on now. She wasn't trying to interrupt the Lord's work in your life. And secondly, when you were done, she was like the Lord's assist. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need more friends like Lydia.
Lydia's the real MVP. I could go on and on about Lydia, man. She played a great.
She did.
Like, she did stuff that like she didn't have to. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't just like a quick setup. Like, she went over and like had someone pray over this, like, like it was crazy.
It was
really,
she was very intentional about it, because she was scared. She knew that it wasn't like some cute thing that she wanted to happen. She genuinely didn't want anyone's heart to get broken or anyone's feelings to get hurt. So she prayed about it for a good bit before she actually went out and like hung out with Siri. And then she said, okay, now is the perfect time.
Can I quickly, I just want to say something about that. That is so dope, because a lot of the times when a friend gets involved, they're only thinking about their friend. They're not thinking about their friend's partner. And for her to be that intentional to not only care about you, Aiden, but also to care about Moni speaks volumes to character. And it speaks, that's the standard. I think you see it with like advice too, where, like if I'm going to share with a homie something that happened in my situation, he would be so quick to like tear her down and build me up. But a real friend, like if I need to be called out, I got to be called out, right? Yeah. If I need to be challenged, I need to be challenged. And it sounds like she was very cautious with the way she was moving, and she was very careful with the way she presented things, and she was looking out for the both of y'all, not just, anyways, that's incredible. Go ahead. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No.
And a Jackie Hill tweet is what started all of it. She read a
Yeah.
tweet online to like hook your friends, something about hooking
She
friends up.
said people need to start hooking up each other's friends more. Like it should be a thing where you set people up rather than meeting each other through like dating apps or something.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, 2020 is going to be the year I set my friends up.
Wow.
And it happened.
Shout out to the Perrys one time for the one time.
No,
I know.
out here doing stuff like
Changing
this.
lives.
Yeah, God's work.
So we got a chance to meet because when Siri found out about me, she obviously was not with Moni at the moment, but she knew that if she just kind of sent him my Instagram profile and say, I think you would be interested in this girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually said no.
It wasn't even all that. It was just the eye emoji. So I got like a profile, like a link to the profile and then an eye emoji. And that was it. And so I looked at that and I was, yeah, that's a whole story. I'll let you finish and then I'll get to my side of
Okay, I like it.
From what I understand, he initially said, oh, I'm not really looking for anything right now. And then he, of course, followed me that day and liked a few pictures. I call it tapping on the window, like, you know, someone throwing rocks at the window, like trying to get your attention.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a Romeo moment. So that's kind of how, I guess, the connection started. He ended up posting something related to, what was it? Like a dog on his story.
Yeah,
he just posted something funny. Let's
speed it up.
He posted something funny on his story. I respond and say, hey, this is funny. It's not really what I said, but you know, you kind of get the gist. I'm just trying to catapult this conversation. But
can we give kudos to you though, because that's like the alley-oop. There's like, we got to talk about the difference between pursuing and tapping on the window, because most people won't even do that. Just, you know, like they won't like the picture back. They won't like the story. They won't initiate a conversation. I hear a lot of
Here's the thing. All right. So I followed, liked some pictures, and then I waited, right? But her responding to a story that I posted,
that was
like
it.
Opened the door.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, oh, but I was still kind of like, when we went back and forth, those initial messages, it was kind of like,
it was pretty dry.
It was still dry. But the thing is, this is what happened though. It's like she kept the conversation going, you know, and it gave me hope. It was one of the best feelings ever. Said like her having to say like, hey, like she asked questions too. Like it wasn't like it was an open-ended question that she was like kind of asking instead of like a short yes or no. And that kind of had the ball rolling a bit. And
absolutely. And it was like one of those things where you thought the conversation was going to end on your part, but then they also kind of kept the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And it's funny because one of our first conversations, super formal. Hey, my name's Moni. I love Jesus, and I followed you because aesthetics and Jesus, or something like super formal like that.
I kept it real. Like, I knew I wanted to get married.
Yeah.
Right. But what I wasn't gonna compromise was, one, my faith, my values, and two, there's certain things that I was looking for, like when it comes to attraction, and I told her, like, I was okay with her saying no, like her blocking me, or like I was okay with all that. But I had to be true to myself. There's times in my life where I've been fake up front, and it hurt me down the line. So I learned from my lessons. I was like, yeah, we're gonna keep it real. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I quick question, like, what made the what made both of you guys invested in the conversation, even though it was dry? Because, you know, I did a whole podcast about this. No spark, no date. Like, if there's no draw, if there's no spark, if there's no electricity, man, if the conversation ain't flowing, if he ain't making me laugh, if she isn't keeping me on my toes, then there's no point in pursuing this. But it just kind of seemed like though it was formal, straightforward, dry at times, there was engagement. Speak to that a little bit.
See, this is why I should have told this story, because I would have kept all these things in there. So here's a part that she missed that I'm about to say is there's initial interest, right, before the conversation.
Okay.
Like her and
Yes,
her and
that's
Lydia.
one thing. Lydia had asked me, "Is it okay if I do this?" Like it wasn't like a surprise, like this is happening. And she said, "Is it okay if I like do this for you?" And I said, "Okay, like I don't really know him, but I think we could see what happens with this."
Yeah. I love it.
So she was actually waiting for me to, like, I guess,
Waiting's a stretch.
okay, what do you want to call it? What do you want to call it?
I'm just leaving the ball in your court.
Yes, that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
Leaving the ball.
Moni, did you know it was being set up? Like, did Lydia also communicate that to you?
No, that's the thing. Like, Lydia was just she didn't want to just come to me.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't know if I was intimidated. I don't know what it was.
She didn't want to seem like a creep.
Yeah, so she didn't come to me straight. So it's kind of like a God thing in a way. It's like, seriously, because it could have went the other way. Like it could, if she hadn't responded to the story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't think I would have like actually like reached out, because I had no idea what was going on in the background, right?
There's a whole word in there.
To that story, definitely like led to a conversation.
Totally.
But before that though, she did react to one of my posts, where I posted like a verse on my story, and I think she liked it, or
I think you reacted.
I don't know. I did that. My bad.
Yeah.
I was the one that reacted to her story.
Yeah.
So I kind of initiated again, and then like her responding to my story kind of made things happen. So
yes,
for sure.
So
okay, awesome.
But yeah, so I guess just very quickly going back to the whole like why did we have that initial spark, because it was like dry question.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe there one of like that factor of what this could have been, and it didn't really matter in the moment, at least, how I guess enthusiastic text came across or DMs came across, because I feel like you really can't tell someone's personality over text. That's always just been my approach. I feel like I'm not the best texter at all, so I never hold that against anyone. You know?
I love it. Yeah, it's true. Personality doesn't always seep through DMs and text messages and stuff like that. Yeah,
totally.
Okay. So unpack. Okay, so Lydia, the faithful friend, set it up beautifully. It wasn't messy. It was God honoring. It was timely. It was classy. Aiden responded to a story. Moni picked up what Aiden was putting down. Conversation began. What led to, okay, how do you go from the talking stage to, hey, let's pursue a relationship? Like, Moni, because it sounded like Aiden knew that there was interest from her end from the jump. You didn't really know what was going on, but like, what, how did you initiate a relationship? Like, what was the turning point for you in jumping into the relationship?
The conversations what like gave me the courage to, like, I guess, get deep, and like really, I don't know, pursue a conversation. Like the initial conversation made me want to kind of be open and transparent and vulnerable. And it's kind of like a side note. I really do feel like when women kind of have their guard down just a little, I believe that it will help the man kind of open up. And that's what happened with me, is she kind of had the guard down. Like, she's like, all right, I'm willing to initiate a conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to say my name, what I do, and where I live. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And we went back and forth. But like I said, like, she always brings this up. Like, I was super formal with it. I was just like, hey, listen, I'm a pastor. Literally, you can ask her. That was like one of the first things I said to her.
Yeah.
I'm a pastor. This is what I do. This is where I live.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's see what she says back. And
Hold up. We
she,
can't just move past that real quick.
yeah,
You weren't afraid of jeopardizing the whole operation? Like you didn't want to ease into that? That's like a third, fourth date kind of, you don't want to lead
Really?
with that, bro. Like
Wait,
you don't
you
want to
say that
scare
on the
her
third
off.
or fourth date? How do you get away with that? Isn't that like one of the first questions someone asks you when you like meet someone?
Yeah, just like, I'm a manager or something. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I manage people's spirituality.
I work at a church.
Yeah, I work at a church. I'm in school. Weren't you in school at the
I'm in
time? You
school.
could have finessed the system. No, I'm just kidding. This is
Nah,
terrible.
you're,
I do want to know how you got the boldness.
I went that route. See, like I
Mm.
said earlier, I learned my lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
And when you learn your lesson the hard way,
Mm.
it's always better to be authentic. Like,
That's
I think
good,
that
man.
kind of preaches to a lot of people. It's like, man,
Mm.
I said this the other day. If you're trying to be someone you're not in the
Yeah,
dating
man.
process, you're
Yeah, man.
literally setting yourself up for failure.
Totally.
And
That's
so I was like, yo, this is who I am.
Mm.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And she caught it. Like, she's like, all right, I'm with this. And so
Yeah.
that really helped. And from there, we just kept it real, kept having real conversations. So
Yeah.
like, our conversation was dry at first, but then like when we started getting on the phone and talking to each other, it got real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it definitely helped.
Yeah.
Can I ask Aiden, like, how did you respond? I know we were having this conversation off air, and this is not just for pastors, but there are a lot of godly men and women. There are a lot of people who fear the Lord, who are committed to their local context, their church, love Jesus, but really do feel like, man, I got to dim this light down a little bit. Like, I'm not trying to be the Jesus person, I don't want to scare him away. I don't want to scare her away. And people are just kind of undercover Christians out here. And just to encourage people, like, how did you receive his boldness to be authentically himself, being true to not only who he is, but what he does, and the call that he has on his life, and the implications? Because like, being a pastor is a lot. Being a pastor's wife, you're like welcoming a whole lifestyle that's also difficult. And maybe somebody's listening in and they're like, bro, I'm not a pastor, but you love Jesus, and that has implications to how you run your finances. That has implications to how you spend your time. That has implications to the people you surround yourself with. That has implications to the way you live your life. And so, but yeah, man, like, speak to that a little bit. Like, were you drawn to him all the more for being honest? Was that something that you found attractive? Was that something that scared you a little bit? Like, what was your response to that?
I would say we all have a call of our lives. And I think genuinely how you perceive that call will initially tell you how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I just felt like my call was to identify my life as a Christian through everything I did. Like you mentioned, your finances, how I go to work, how I, go to the grocery store, how I am perceived by people in my friend groups. And so like, that was just like who I am as a person. Like, I love Jesus, like Eden, Jesus, like, so if that's something where I place my value, I would also want my significant other or my partner to have that be a very important role in their life as well. And this is something for me as well. Like he mentioned, this was not something that happened overnight. Like it kind of was like a gradual thing where I also had experiences where I may have like talked to a guy who I thought I could sway his beliefs into being Christian. And that did not work well because like then you end up compromising your beliefs. You end up compromising how you want to live your life. So I just knew right off the bat, I didn't want to go down a path where I was with someone that would end up maybe loving me more than they love Jesus. And when he came out and said, this is who I am right off the bat, I just thought that was so attractive because you're like unashamed of something that you believe in. Even if it wasn't Jesus, if someone was just like, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and I'm just showing you straight up, like up front, that is attractive because you are unashamed of who you are.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even need to be about your faith.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you're not a Christian,
Yeah.
dating anyone that's like hiding who they are,
Right.
that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So for me, when he said, "Hey, I'm a pastor," I immediately thought, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Like I've never, you know, dated a pastor before, and I know the implications that come with it.
Yeah.
But let's just see how this goes,
Yeah.
and I will figure it out in due time." And I will say ignorance is bliss, because at the time I was kind of just like, "Oh, this seems so cool. Like we can talk about so much. We have so much in common." So like down the line, I think like you kind of understand the magnitude and the responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah.
But when I initially heard it, I was like, okay, I like this.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was powerful, by the way.
So good. Many gems were dropped right there.
Yeah, and I always say this. This is one thing I really live by is, man, if you're fake, you'll attract fake. If you're real, you'll attract real. So, man, I just don't want to be burned by just being someone I'm not.
Yeah.
And man, I'm glad that you received it. I'm glad, but that you decided to keep talking to me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's real.
yeah.
No, I love it. It's because, man, a lot of us, we feel like we've got to compromise who we are to get to what we want. And we like to think that stepping on God's back will get us to God's best, but you can't have God's promise without adopting God's ways. And a lot of us think that God's ways to what God has for us is maybe outdated, a little too scary. It's not, God, he's like, yo, we need to contextualize. It's 2022. It's not 2 AD. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I heard Charlemagne on Breakfast Club once say, like, we need to go back and update the Bible. There's a lot of good things in there, but there's just a lot of things that are irrelevant. And I feel like that's how we think about our daily lives too. Like, God, like, if only you knew, like, we don't do arranged marriages anymore. Like, we got to change up the game a little bit. We got to compromise here. We got to do that. And then we'll get to your best. But no, like, you can't get God's best doing it your way. You must adopt his ways to obtain his promise. And so, no, I love it. Yeah.
That's so good.
You guys got on the phone, started talking, feelings were starting to get involved. Like, sorry, I keep interrupting. Let us know what was next.
What was next? All right. So, they started moving fast, and I'll be honest, that was my doing. Like, she was kind of like, I think she was like kind of waiting it out. Like, I'm a guy, like, I don't know if you're like this, that can't get on the phone with you. Like, I want to be on FaceTime.
Oh, yeah.
Like, off the rip. Like, I'd rather call people on FaceTime than just call them on like audio. And so I remember saying, like, let's get on FaceTime. And she shut that down like real quick. And she's like, no.
This is so weird. I'm not getting on FaceTime with you just yet.
Yeah. I will say I got like overly confident and I just went for it, and it got shut down. And so I went ahead and we started talking.
Humble you real quick, bro.
Yeah. I was like, all right, okay. But then I remember I just went straight to it. I was like, all right, like, dang, I'm really about to say this on air. I told her I told her that I knew she was going to be my wife 3 days or 4 days into the conversation.
Wow.
And instead of being scared or running away,
I was a little scared.
You still embraced it though, and it was beautiful.
Hold up.
What initially happened was I said, let's give this some time. Why don't you like sit and think on this? Because he's like, I want this so bad. Let's just do this.
No, that's what she said. She said it's getting late. It's too late right now. And she said you're just kind of just talking.
Because when
nonsense.
It's like you're on the phone super late at night.
Yeah.
You get in your feelings.
Yeah.
I was just under the assumption that like he, I don't know, was just talking crap, basically.
But I woke up the next day and I was like,
yep,
I still got the same feeling.
Well, like, my mind is like blown right now. It's like, it's been you said 4 or 5 days into it. You knew she was the one.
I knew she was the one.
Was it? Did you hear audible voice? Like, what did you a characteristic pop out?
I
Like,
mean,
is it? It was
God,
late.
God hasn't talked to me audibly just yet. Like, I just
I'm
want
just
to
trying
say
to
that to
say,
people.
4 or 5 days,
But I,
bro.
but I will say this. I will
What's your
say this.
credit score looking like? That's day 4 for me. Like,
Um, I will say this though. The whole time, like I had this like huge list, that unrealistic expectation, and like this was done in my singleness. I condensed it, and I had like literally like 3 or 4 things that I really wanted in a person,
yeah,
or in my future wife, and I'll take that list and I went to God. I'm like, it wasn't out of the world. It was just, I mean, out of like, it wasn't like unrealistic. It was just, God, I need someone that's gonna help me serve you.
yeah,
Mhm.
I need someone that's super in touch with reality. You know,
mm,
I need someone who has respect, like can respect me as um, a man.
yeah,
That was it. And I was like, man, God, if she has all these three and she's a 4 or a 5, I'll take it.
yeah.
So that's how I went with it. And
How did you get? Sorry, not to interrupt, but how did you get to that point, bro? It sounds like you got rid of your list, but was
yes,
it a conviction? Was it a decision? Was it experiences? Were you just at a point where you're like, man, I've idolized? I read this one article, and the author was saying how we're still single because we take marriage or the qualities we look for in a marriage more seriously than we ought to. This idea
yeah,
that we're looking for things that were never prescribed for us to be looking for. Um,
yeah,
and there's a whole conversation around being picky. I think we should be picky, but the question is what kind of picky. It sounds
yeah,
like you were picky around the right things,
yeah,
right? Things
yeah,
that mattered in the scope of eternity, right? And
yeah,
that somebody that would align not only with your faith but with your vision, somebody
yeah,
that would come alongside of you and help you build what God had entrusted you with. And
yeah,
so, but yeah, like, how did you get to that place? Because some of us, we have a hard time letting go of like things on our list that seem essential.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like things that feel like they matter. But in the whole grand scheme of things, they don't matter, right? But it's such a huge temptation for us to think that if I don't have this, then my marriage will not. I remember one time I was telling my friend, he was just fed up with me. Why are you still single? I was like, man, I'm just looking for someone who like loves hip hop. And he just like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
yo, like, let her introduce you to other type of music. And I was like, yeah, maybe that shouldn't be something on my list, right? But we
yeah.
do this to ourselves. We put things on the list that shouldn't be on the list. But what was that journey like for you to like condense it, make the main thing the main thing? My pastor used to always say, don't major in the minor. It seemed like you didn't
Yeah.
major in the minor. Like, what was that process and journey like for you?
Um, I actually learned this at a really young age, and so it helped me
Mm.
as I continue to like grow. Learn this lesson at the age of 19. Um,
Wow.
so I'm not comparing this to like picking a wife, but it was just a life lesson for me
Mhm.
Yeah.
to consider things that like are valuable more than things that are flashy. And
Mm.
so at the age of 19, I remember it was my first car. And I remember just asking my parents, I seen this Mazda RX-8 sitting in a lot. I
Yeah.
bring this story up a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was red. It looked flashy. It had like butterfly doors. It was beautiful. And so I was like,
Yeah.
man, I want that. I want that car, and I wanted that car because I wanted my friends to think I was cool, like
Mm.
to get down to the core of it. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted, and so
Wow.
I had this like warehouse job. Like I was first year in college, had this warehouse job, and I'd like save up. And my parents said, if you save up for it, we'll match whatever you save up. And I was like, all right, cool. And then my mom was like, get on your knees and pray
Yeah.
that God will give you this car. And I was like, all right, cool. Got on my knees. And I remember my prayer. It was the funniest 2-minute prayer. It was
Yeah.
like, God, if you give me this car, I'll take my friends and I to church, and we will, serve you, and like I will use this for your glory, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we end up, so I go to work one day and I come back home and my dad's like, hey, the garage door is broken. I want you to get in through the front door and you're going to help me fix the garage door. I was like, bro, I just got off work. So I get home and my dad's like, all right, let's go into the garage, and boom, the car is right there.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I love you guys. And I was like, God did this. I did all, like God
did.
bless me. That's what God did. God did. I
Yeah.
was on my DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
I said God did. But here's one thing I want to say before I continue. Every time we say God did, if it doesn't end up being what God did,
Mm.
it's gonna be embarrassing.
Mm.
I'll let people do whatever they want with that. But man,
Yeah.
like you got to make sure it's from God before you
Yeah.
go in and announce it to everybody.
That's
So
good,
anyway,
man. That's good.
um,
Sidebar
got
for DJ Khaled.
so I got the car, and it was it was not a piston engine, it was a rotary engine. And the rotary engines are used to like fly planes, not for vehicles. And so it looked flashy, but it had a rotary engine.
Yeah.
And the car didn't last me a year, and I got everything. My friends wanted to catch a ride with me. I was getting compliments, but man, the car did not last a year. I mean, we still joke around about it till this day because the car started almost blew up on the side of the road as I was driving it, and we just left it there and went home and
That's
spent
crazy.
more on it than I spent for it initially.
Come on,
And
Bishop.
now
This is
let's
a
take that
setup.
analogy. Let's take that analogy and bring it into the dating game.
Come on
right?
now.
Do you really want to spend something? Do you want to spend? Do you want something for yourself that you're gonna have to continue spending your time, money, energy on for it to actually be something that was never meant for you?
Wow.
Or is it better for you to choose something that will be of value to you? So my parents always said, hey, the smart choice is a Toyota or Honda. And I'm like, man, I'll be the first Abasha to have a Mazda on them. But man, that's the thing. Sometimes wisdom, especially the young people,
Yeah.
Wisdom's always seen as something that is irrelevant or not cool. Yeah. And so that moment is all right, I'm going to listen to anyone that has wisdom and has been in the game long enough to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear.
Yeah.
That
That's
changed
so
the game
good.
for me. That's what condensed my list. And so when she came into the scene, I was like, yo, it's easy. It's not, no more Mazdas. I want a Toyota and a Honda because that's going to sustain me down the
You just
line.
told me a
No,
Toyota.
No. That's not. I said before.
You just told me a
No.
reliable vehicle.
No.
He said you're a Corolla. A Camry.
You're a Honda Civic. No.
That's hilarious.
No, but all this to say is just that at an early age we start learning what's good and what's bad, and so I just picked it up at an early age.
Can I say, you said, bro, that first of all, that analogy was spectacular. So much we can pick apart. I see the teaching in you, bro. I was getting happy over here, waiting for the punchline. But there's something you said about wisdom and getting around people that have been in it for the long haul, people that have been experienced, things like that. And one thing that has tremendously impacted what I look for in a wife has been being around other married folks. I see Yoni in the chat here. Yoni is a great example. He's an amazing husband, faithful husband, incredible father. I see other husbands in my life, and getting around them really detached. It helped me detach what matters and from what doesn't matter. I think that part of the reason why we're struggling in the dating game is because we're trying to figure it out in isolation. And we're not surrounded by individuals. We're not surrounded by people that are in it and doing it well. They're not, because I don't want to get married and be in a rude awakening, right? Oh my gosh, nobody tell me we're going to fight about toilet paper. Does it go down or does it go up? How do we, nobody told me that we're going to fight about X, Y, right? And so, or nobody told me that what to look for are these traits and characteristics, because this is what's going to help you conquer some of the giants that face your marriage or what have you. But
Yeah.
speak to that a little bit, like, because I feel like all the dating advice we get now are from people like Kevin Samuels, right?
Yeah.
The red pill community, right?
Yeah.
Telling men to be a certain way. These men aren't married. These
Yeah.
men have a string of broken relationships, divorces, left and right. You know, we're getting advice from Disney, this happily ever after. I think I heard Tim Ross talking about this in his podcast, but he was just sharing how like all the movies end on the wedding date, And it's like, how can you really extract wisdom for a successful marriage if you never talk about what it looks like to be married? It's only the journey to getting married or what have you. Just speak to that, the importance, the significance of having like-minded individuals who believe what you believe, who have gone the distance and are exactly where you want to be, and how that shapes not only what we look for in a marriage, but it really does shape setting us up for a successful marriage.
Well, I feel like, I don't know the exact quote, but there's like this quote that says, pick out 6 of your friends and that's exactly who you are. Or, the verse in the Bible that says bad company corrupts good character. It's like time and time again, we see that who we surround ourselves with reflect who we are or make us into the person that we are. I mean, even me personally, like whenever I go out of the country into like a foreign place, unintentionally I start speaking like the people there because I don't know why. Like I'm just that person that just randomly just picks up people's mannerisms and stuff like that. So I think it's like our human nature to be around people and start acting like them, doing similar things that they do. So in my life, I have definitely noticed that some of the best advice that I've ever gotten are people who have made mistakes and helped me walk through potentially not making a similar one, or helping me through a time where I potentially had to walk through a similar mistake that they did. And I can speak to so many times in college prior to me actually having good quality friends in my life where I made so many mistakes and how
we got to get into that. We got to talk about that because that's something that people need to hear.
He wants the laundry out, dirty clothes
okay.
out.
No, I really do feel like, because it's something that we talked about. Sorry to cut you off. I want you to finish yours, and I'll
talk about for me.
Yeah, like that specific, like time in her life. Like I, as a youth pastor, right? I'm always like be smart and have wisdom. That life is not profitable down the line, and we're sitting here, and she's telling me like, dang, like I went through college, but then where I'm at right now, like I'm thankful for, because like I made the right decision. But I'm like, man, how many people can make the right decision earlier so that they could set themselves up? And so that's something we always talk about. It's like wisdom is key.
No, but there's also like, I'm so grateful for grace, because obviously like if it wasn't for, I mean, it's like it's never too late. That's what's so great about grace. So when I messed up when I did in college because I was hanging out with the wrong people, it was like a quick switch. I felt like, to where I had to walk away from those friends and say, I'm just gonna like do me for a bit and try looking for better people in my life who I know will advocate for the things that I want to be like. So I would definitely just say that I don't know, like it's so hard to go through marriage even without a community, because there were so many times where we got into an argument and we could just think back to the advice that we had gotten when we were engaged, or how we want to be like we look up to so many married couples as well, where we think like, okay, if we could handle this situation better, how could we do that? How could
Right.
we, I guess, even inspire other folks through our
Yeah.
marriage by just responding in a better way?
Yeah.
So those were
Yeah.
kind of like my
Yeah,
thoughts, at least.
fact.
No, that's so
I'm
good.
curious.
If I want to, I just want to add this
Yeah.
and say that I don't really empathize with people who are willing to make bad decisions but still want the good thing. Like, like
Mm,
if you want that thing, then be
yeah.
disciplined for that thing.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right. Right.
you can't have both of anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm in these conversations a lot, and it's just like, bro, this is what you want. Like, let me just set you up,
Yeah.
and my guy would be like, nah, but it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna sit here and just watch you figure it out
Yeah.
until you humble yourself and come back to
Yeah.
what you need. And I think that's what God is like. God's like,
Yeah.
okay, like, do you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then once you're humbled,
That's
you'll
funny.
understand that my way
Right.
is always perfect. And so that's kind of
Absolutely.
like both of our journeys. And so I love grace, but man, like, you could really save yourself from a lot of
Yeah.
Unnecessary hurt
exactly.
or mistakes.
And that's the thing, I've been reflecting a lot on the passage where Jesus says, "I have come to give you life and life to the fullest."
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of the times we look at God's commands, we look at God's decrees, and we look at it as burdens or hindrances. But God's like, nah, nah, nah. I created you and I know how you best function. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to rob from you. I'm not trying to take from you, but really, like, when I called you to certain things, it's really for your protections because I'm for your joy. And we don't hear
Yeah.
that enough in the church. Like, God is for your joy. God is for your happiness. Like, God wants to see you smile and be successful. And he's like,
That's good.
trust me, dog. Like, if you did it my way, I know because I made you. You know what I'm saying?
literally.
If you did it my way, I guarantee you, you'll be a happy camper. You know what I mean? But that doesn't get talked about in the church enough. This idea that God has designed us and God knows
Yeah.
what's best for us. A lot of the times we present it as you just gotta die to yourself and do what you don't want to do and don't do what you do want to do. And it's like there's a level of truth to that. I like liken it to working out. It's like, fam, there is a level of like denying self. Like, I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. Like, I want to eat sugar right now. Like, I want to eat carbs right now, right? But
Yeah.
you know ultimately what you want. I think it was Tim Keller who said the problem with us is it's not that we're for desire or for happiness. It's we cheapened it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't go after what we want most. We go after what we want now. And
Yeah.
Wow.
I think part of the problem is we fail to recognize that God is for what you want most, not just what you want now. And everybody who, works out, eats right, you stick to it a few months, 6 months, a year, and you're like, I'm so glad I did. Nobody has ever been consistent in the gym and looked back at their life and said, wow, I wasted my time. But
Yeah.
what do people who don't work out, who don't wake up early, who don't eat right end up saying, dang, dog, like I knew I shouldn't have done that. But we chose what we wanted now instead of what we want most. And so, man, God is for us, and whatever he's called us to, it's to help you level up. He's for you, like for real. Like he wants to see you flourish. And so,
Wow. That is
real
awesome.
quick. Awesome. Real quick. So I want to get into some dating stuff and sliding in DMs. I want to talk about dating. I want to talk about attraction. But before we do, I want to give an opportunity for you guys to, I'm so excited. I'm invested already. So how did you get to that point 4 or 5 days in? So I promise you, I won't interrupt ananymore, but 4 or 5 days in,
You're good at what you do, man. So I'm out here. It's like a therapy session.
I appreciate it. But 4 or 5 days in, you drop this bomb. Like, yo, you're the one I want to marry. You sleep on it. You wake up the next day and you still feel the same way. Eden, I don't know if you responded to that or like what you thought about that, but speak on that. How do you get from there to where you guys are at today?
I guess I took his word for it.
Hmm.
And for someone that you've only known for about a few days, that could be a risk. But I feel like most dating relationships, talking phases, whatever you want to call them, you're taking a risk.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt like this was a risk worth taking. So
Mm.
I said, let's just try this out and see how it works.
Yeah.
So we continued this relationship. We didn't really like officially say, hey, you're my boyfriend or you're my girlfriend
Yeah.
until he came to visit me actually for the first time in April of
Mm.
2021.
Yeah.
And it was during that trip that he actually met my dad for the first time
Mm.
and asked for his hand in marriage. His
So,
hand? My hand.
Wow.
your hand, but that's a whole story for itself. That,
Wow.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
bold,
yeah.
bro. The first visit. That's what you're asking.
Yes.
bold moves, get it done. I'm preaching that
That's
forever.
a whole word. You walking in
Yeah.
fear, young buck.
Literally. Um,
Um,
and I guess like I went on a trip with his family maybe like a couple months after that to Mexico. First time I had met them, we were already doing an international trip. And I went and visited him in July,
Yeah.
actually. Stayed there for a month, worked remotely from California,
Wow.
got an Airbnb, just chilled there for a month, got to know each other more. And that is when he proposed to me.
Wow.
And we got engaged.
another
Yeah.
bold move.
Another bold move, which was 4 months after meeting at like in person for the first time.
Yeah.
So,
It's wild. I mean,
and
the
then
whole story is bold. Yeah.
Bold. That's
it was a God thing. I
it
mean,
was. That's the thing. Like one
yeah,
thing I want to say though
Mm.
is like, man, I want to give the man above credit. Like I
Yeah.
want, like, I don't want to walk away from this conversation and
yeah,
not give him what he deserves.
Yeah.
Man, our plans will always fail, but his plans will
that's good.
prevail. Like that's
Yeah.
what scripture says. And so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but also I don't want to make it super spiritual to the point where it doesn't, like, there's some practical things we did. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just a prayer that gets the job done, but it's also us having to actually
put in the effort.
put in the effort, having
Yeah.
conversations and whatnot. So,
Absolutely.
but I
Yeah.
think you pretty much told the whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's so dope. I was like, you guys brought up like Jackie earlier. I
Yeah.
remember having, I think this was actually like last fall, sometime this around the same time, I was having lunch with Preston. And I remember in that moment, I was trying to make it work with somebody. And I was like, bro, give me some advice. How'd you get Jackie? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you get this done? And I'm only bringing this up because what he said, Akel, is what you guys are talking about. He's like, bro, when it's God's will, there's no like struggle. He's like, that doesn't mean it's not difficult or that it's easy,
right.
but like there's an ease that comes with it. There's like like
There's
you
a
don't
flow to
gotta,
it.
yeah, you don't gotta force it. You don't gotta manipulate it. You don't have to like, I think of that verse that says, if the Lord doesn't build, the workers work in vain or what have you, right?
Yeah,
If the watchman, if the Lord's not watching over the city, the watchmen watch in vain, right?
Yeah.
And
that's good.
that's kind of what I hear as you guys are talking. It kind of seems like, wow, 4 or 5 days, you knew she was the one. 4 months in, you proposed. The first time you met her dad, you asked for permission. Like, but look at, you guys are, happy, married. You guys are doing God's will for your lives. You guys are serving the kingdom of God. And nobody can take that away from you guys. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the times too, we'll sit and hear stories like yours and be like, man, I want God to do it just like that. Or, man, this is the way God's going to do it. But that robs him of his glory. God's
Yeah.
writing a unique story in all of our lives, and he's setting
Yes.
things up for his purposes. And I love your story because it's untraditional in every way, but yet
Yeah.
God is all over it. You see his fingerprints all over it, and there's nothing to, there's no secret about it. Like from the beginning, being bold about who you are, being bold about what you're doing, being bold about how you feel, being bold about what you're calling her to, being bold
Yeah.
about receiving what it is that he's calling you into. And not only like receiving it, but being attracted to that. Like, yo,
Yeah.
like God had written your stories on an individual level to the point where you guys were ready to meet each other at the right time. Because Eden was talking about how like she was already in a situation where they weren't being real about what they were at, or she was trying to make things happen for their faith or what have you. And so you guys were both ready. And yeah, some can look at your story and be like, oh, they rushed it, or this is too fast, or oh my gosh, this is Christian culture. Or you can look back and be amazed at God's glory and be like, wow, look at how God worked in their life. And it might not be my story, but I can take principles, I can take nuggets, I can take inspiration and know that God will do for them what he did, or do for me what he did for them. And so, yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. It means a lot.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like your story is not someone else's story. And it's like, I think that's where we go wrong. Actually, we try to duplicate the story, and God's like, all right, like I love, like, that's the character of God that I really love. It's like the prodigal son story, right?
Yeah.
He waits. He waits till you fumble the ball. He waits until he just waits. And he's like, all right, are you done? And man, there's so much joy in humility. Like that's what I want to preach is I want to say, man, when you get to the point of humility, just watch what happens through grace. James 4:6, right? Those who humble themselves, God will give more grace. And it's like, my goodness, that's the story of my life. I'm like hard-headed. Like I'm gonna try it my way. I'm gonna be rebellious. I'm gonna do it my way. And it's like God waits. Like that's literally my relationship with God. It's like I go ahead of God. God waits for me.
Absolutely.
And then the pace gets better. And then I think you could relate to that too. But yeah, you said it, man.
No, that's so good. I love like, bro, like to that point too. You're an artist, right? You make music. You're not just, I mean, teaching is an art form, right? People don't talk about that enough. Like that's a whole nother podcast episode for in itself. Podcasting is an art form, you know, managing conversation, things of that nature. But God is the ultimate artist, and God is the ultimate creative. God loves his glory, and he loves us way too much to repeat himself. Can you imagine if Kendrick Lamar put out the same album he put out last time? Like,
oh man,
we mess with it. I wouldn't play it.
Yeah, it's like, fam. That's why I don't like all these little rappers. I'm taking shots all night today, bro. Listen, Drake, Certified Lover Boy. Let's talk about it. Side tangent. It was the same beat with the same features, talking about the same things, and I'm like, fam, you want us to buy this? Like, I'm no fool. Like I love music way too much to be supporting this. You know what I'm saying? But thank God our God is not like Drake. Can I get it?
I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Personal. That's our God.
That's our God. But yeah, he's not gonna look at the story he put together between you two and be like, I want to do it just like that. He's just way too creative, too glorious to do the same thing. But like I said, if you come back to your point in humility, and if you trust the process, you honor his ways, he could do something magical with it, you know?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's good, man. It's just like, I think like even idolizing relationships, I think we could touch on that too while we're here.
Yeah.
Like when you idolize other relationships, what you're doing is the same thing. It's like you're saying, I want that. Even in our prayers. Like how many times do we go into our prayer closet talking about, give me this?
Yeah.
I was like, no. You know, I love God's heart. No, like this is not for you. I'm gonna show my glory through your story, right?
That's so good, bro. That's so good. Real quick, I want to engage the people. So the comment section is going in. Jimmy's in the house. Thank God our God is not like Drake. Amen. He said, tweet that. But I just want to take some time where we do some Q&A. We want to engage those that are in the chat. I got some questions too. And one of the things I want to talk about, I know we talked about this before we got on air, is why do you think we don't see more relationships? I know, Eden, you had a hot take. Maybe it's not a hot take. You feel like there are a lot more eligible women than there are men in the church. Moni and I have some thoughts. Like, let's speak to that a little bit. Like, why do you think we're seeing less and less marriages? People are getting married later and later. Yeah, what do you let's solve this. Let's unpack this together. Like let's figure out the state of
I
our
think
Christian
it's a
culture.
hot take that like there are more eligible bachelorettes than bachelors in the church, but I guess it is. I will I will say that my views are willing to be swayed, but from what I have just observed in the communities that I've been in, whether it be San Jose or DC, I felt like I saw more women in
Yeah.
the pews than men.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I just thinking about, how many are in the room. Yes, I will say that there are more women from what I've seen than there are men.
Yeah.
Now, are they eligible? I'm not really sure. I think that's maybe where the hot take is. But I will say, from the friends that I've spoken to, at least, and even just my experience overall, like before meeting Moni, it
Yeah.
was kind of hard to date within the Christian community
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was very close knit and everyone knew everyone.
Yeah.
And, if you were in Bible study with a guy and you guys start talking,
Yeah.
and then you break up, like everyone's like awkward about it. So you don't want to do that. So you just avoid, you know,
Or
talking to anyone at all. So that's where I think the friction comes into play, to
yeah.
where you don't want to, I don't know, make things awkward, go to a
Yeah.
different church. I've heard friends that say that they won't date at their church at all,
Oh
and they'll
yeah.
go to church, which I don't really know how I feel about that either. That would be kind of difficult. Like, would you just like end up splitting up churches on Sundays when you guys end up getting married or engaged?
Listen, let
Um,
me tell you something. That has been, I don't know if you guys have seen this at K Culture, but that is something we've seen in our context. Like nobody dates in their local context. Everybody who's dated and gotten married, they've had to look outside the four walls of Perazim Church.
Yeah.
And
wow.
it's a struggle because once you get married or you're talking about marriage, it's a real conversation. Which church are we going to go
Yeah.
to? But I really resonate as a single person. It would be mad awkward to date someone within the community and then it doesn't work out. It's like, fam, what do I
That's
do with
church
this?
different.
I actually have a question. Are you opposed to dating someone that goes to your church
I am
that you
opposed to
leave?
it. I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Yeah. But
Okay.
I feel like I'm in a unique position because I'm also a pastor. I'm thinking about like power
Right.
dynamics. I'm thinking about it
You would
might be different.
outsource.
Yeah, yeah. Sam said there's no one here though. That's hilarious.
In,
But that's
in
I don't know.
Minnesota? Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody says that about their city. I consider the DMV in Texas to be the promised land. And I've been to the DMV, I've been to Texas, and everybody there is saying the same thing. Like, there's nobody
Well,
here.
everyone knows everyone. That's the hard part.
Yeah,
That it's like dating within the church times 10. So it's like,
yeah,
whoa, even harder,
yeah,
in
yeah.
my opinion, at least, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, do you
Like,
guys think it's pride then, or like what is it like? Knowing each other shouldn't that be the perfect setup? How do you feel about that? Because some say I want it to be with a stranger. I want to build a romantic interest. Some say like I want it with my best friend, but they'll overlook their best friend. Some people are like, yeah, it's just we're all over the place with it. Like, what do we want?
what do you think?
That's a tough one. Seriously, there's no like right or wrong answer because I've seen it work
Yeah.
both ways. I've seen people who met in church, and it's amazing. Like they get accountability, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, from a pastor standpoint, yeah, that's you wouldn't want to do that. Like
No go.
just because it could get dicey.
Yeah.
Because if the relationship doesn't work out, then it affects the ministry
It does.
It
versus
does.
someone coming in.
It
So,
really does. Yeah.
like to my point though, I just kind of have to rebuttal with you and say that I think Christian women
Hmm.
could
Uh-oh.
get a little picky. And I say this, I had to kind of stir up the pot a little. I have to say this because
Uh-oh.
um, I can't say I can't like there's like a persona, like there's something that we show, right? Like, oh, I do want a man, I want God to bless me, but there are actually like men in the church
Yeah.
who are qualified. Like, I'm not like, as a pastor, this is a pastor talking, right? I could say there's men in there, and I'm not talking about the guys who like um, get the chairs after church to like show off. I'm talking about like genuine, like God loving leaders in the church.
You got an
However,
amen from Sam already. Keep going. Talk
listen,
easy, brother.
we need those
Talk easy.
amens to.
So funny.
But the thing is, that I hear this a lot. He's too spiritual. He reads his Bible too much. He
Wow.
and it's like, and the Christian man is usually seen as like soft. Can I say soft, or and it's like, yo, listen, you're gonna need that soft type of leadership, a type of leadership that comes from, um, you know, the church. I really
Yeah.
do, because um, I don't know. Like, I've seen the way the church dynamics work, and I could literally say that there are men there. Like, that's always a conversation. Like, I've been loyal to God. I've been faithful to God. I've been praying that God will bless me with the wife. And then you go over to the Christian, like, hey, like, what do you think about my guy over there? And
Yeah.
they hit you with, he ain't my type. But I'm
Yeah.
like, the whole time it's just confusing. Like, you can't fall in love in the club, or you can't fall in love outside of the church. Like,
Yeah.
it's right there. But
Okay.
I don't know. So that's why I gotta.
Let me
There's not a lot of
Stir the
guys.
pot a little bit.
There's not a lot of guys in the church, but I will say
the ones that are
listen,
there are overlooked. Let's get real personal here. We're on YouTube. We're on Shaping the Culture. I might regret this tomorrow morning, but let's just go there. To Moni's point, I think the church has feminized men, and that's a bombshell of a statement that we don't have time to dive into and unpack all the intricacies of that statement. But I will say this. I was one of those guys that grew up in the church thinking, if I had a good heart, if I loved Jesus, if I memorized scripture, if I was a leader, then I would have no problem. And I'm a late bloomer in a lot of ways. And I'm a late bloomer, and I'll tell you why. Because I overlooked a lot of other things that women do find attractive. That's taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, taking care of your finances. Like, for the longest, I was like, man, I'm serving God. My treasure is in heaven. And I just mentally accepted the fact that I was just not going to have money on this side of eternity. And I have evolved, praise God, over the years. I'm like, no, I can get my bread up in different ways, and I can manage my finances in such a way that'll set me up to be, right, financially stable and offer somebody more than just a Bible verse. You know what I'm saying? And so
Someone said security in the chat.
Security.
So maybe that's what it is.
Ooh, that's my guy,
James.
Jimmy. That's my friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so for me, and I now that I'm kind of stepping out of this, I'm kind of seeing the problem at large. Where on one end, Moni, I feel you. I think women can be too picky. I also think men can be too picky. But at the same time, we got to ask this bigger question: what kind of men is the church producing? Like, if you were to invite a guy friend to church who didn't have no context for church, who didn't grow up in the church, who has no relationship with God, and he walked in, what about that church would be attractive to him other than the women there? Like the way we do worship, the way we give sermons, like the way we carry ourselves, the kind of men that are there. Like what about the church attracts like these like manly men? And that's even another thing I'm not trying to talk about toxic masculinity. That's a whole nother conversation. But like we have like, we got to take care of ourselves on all fronts, not just spiritually. And I would argue, I have a podcast episode about this coming out this Friday. I would argue if you are spiritually healthy, you are financially healthy, you are emotionally healthy, you are physically healthy, you are relationally healthy, you are mentally healthy. Like our faith impacts all of who we are, not just our quiet time.
Yeah.
And we've like preached this gospel that as long as you have a journal and you memorize a verse a day, you know, it keeps the devil away, and you serve and you show up every Sunday, that you are a man that is desired by women.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. And I've learned the hard way. And again, I'm a late bloomer, but like the culture lied to me, fam. It lied to us. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. I think that's also part of the, so on one end, do I think women are picky? Yes. Do I think they have a point too? I think so. I get it. Like, I get it. Like, would you date you? Right? That classic question. Like, what do you have to offer other than a Bible verse? You know, I'm gonna keep coming back to that, but what do you guys think in the comment section too? I see y'all.
Here's what I would say to that as like the questions are coming in the comment section. Here's what I would say. I believe that attraction is more than physical.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways to be attracted to an individual other than appearance. That's my first point. The second point my second point is, can we apply these principles like anywhere in the world? Because when we say these things, it could be a Western culture type of perspective. Like if we're looking at credit score, like do people in Africa look at credit score? Do people in like, you know, like Europe, like we got it. Because for something to be true, it has to be valid across the board for all of humans. You know, so it's just like, man, if you want a 6'8" guy, and
I can't give you that, fam. I'm sorry.
Abishas are under 5'6".
That's not my story. Praise God.
Not yet. Like, you know? So it's like, so we gotta define what attraction is. You know, I mean, there's a lot of guys who do take care of themselves, who are, you know, who are healthy spiritually. And you know, you could talk about this as well, but it's like, for me, it's like every time, like whenever I look at principles, I always look at, is it across the board? Does it apply? Like the word of God. I really believe the word of God, it applies to all of humanity. Therefore, it's true. So I don't know, like what do you think?
Go ahead.
Oh,
sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, someone in the chat had mentioned how most productions at church are centered around an emotional experience, which caters to the female experience, which I guess my question to that is, what do we think, or why do we think, I guess, having an emotional experience is correlated to women? Like, what about being up in arms at the feet of Jesus, like worshiping, is soft? Or I guess what
is this question a woman?
I'm anyone, I guess. But like, I guess I'm just trying to like understand the perspective of men being soft in the church, because I guess I don't really understand it, because like you have to really define masculinity if you're going to say that someone's soft. And a part of me thinks that like you're kind of similar to what you were saying. We put ourselves in a box when we only correlate it to like Western qualities. So if we think of like what an average American woman would think is masculine,
exactly,
versus maybe someone from like China, an average Chinese woman thinks is masculine. It might be completely different. So I guess I'm just trying to like understand it a little bit better.
I will say this. I think we got to contextualize. We all have been socialized to be attracted to what we're attracted to. And I think America is just too big of a pool. Like we've all been socialized as Black, specifically like Abishas, to think certain things are attractive versus other things, depending on where you grew up. Like in Minneapolis, for the longest time, I grew up in Woodbury. Like I was only surrounded by white women. And so for the longest, like I thought I was going to get with the white, like there's nothing wrong with being in an interracial relationship. There's nothing wrong with being a white. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my surrounding defined what I found to be attractive. So I think on one end, we've got to address the fact that we're all socialized. And then hip hop culture, you know, took root in my life early on. And I was heavily influenced by the T.I.s, the Jay-Z's, the Kanye West, and so they started to, for me, form an idea of what a woman that I wanted to be with was. And so, yeah, on one end, we've all been socialized. But in addition to that, like to get to Jimmy's comment, to get to your question, I do think there is an extreme side where we've got to acknowledge that men are also emotional. I'm kind of over this conversation that men don't have emotions, men can't think, men don't know what they want, men are stupid, men aren't in touch. I just feel like men don't have space to be men who feel. That's a whole nother conversation for another time. But I think there's nothing wrong with coming to church, being up in arms, having an emotional experience with God. I think that's actually one of the most manliest things you do. When I have a son, I hope to worship in front of my son like that on a Sunday morning service. However, I just don't think that entails all of what makes a man, right? Like there's something within us that desires to like protect, provide. Like there's something within men that there's something in us that we're created to fight. We're created to build. We're created to create. Like, we are made for these things, and the church doesn't cater to that. Even when we talk about success, it's just like, oh, success is in heaven. Just, like nobody tells you in the church, like, work hard. Your work is your worship. Nobody tells you in your church to like make money. We're told that money is evil. And on one end, the Bible never said money is evil. It's the root of all evil is your love of money, but you need money to eat. We need money to record this podcast episode right now on laptops that are expensive, with lighting, with mics that cost an arm and a leg. You know what I'm saying? Like you need money to survive in this world, but like nobody's encouraging men or women in the church to like go after it, like what it looks like to honor God in vocation. And I just feel like it's not that there's anything wrong with pursuing emotional experiences in the church. I just think it's incomplete, therefore like making it wrong, And so that's what I would say to that.
Oh,
that's really good.
That's good.
Yeah. Any other thoughts in the comment section, or you guys want to add to that? Moni, what are you thinking about? I'm interested to hear your answer to that response.
Man, I always say this, man, check the back row, man. If the back row says a lot about a man, like as a pastor, it's like, man, it's like if he starts coming down to the front, then it's like, all right, like you could just tell, like, okay. But I want to make this point though, and when it comes to this is for women, right? This is for women. I really like, and you can speak about it, but I really feel like it's easy. It's actually easy. It's easy, but it's hard to apply.
Yeah, man. That's a word.
But the thing is, when you're looking for a man, like we talk about providing, provision. Do you want him to provide financially, or do you want him to provide spiritually? Do you want him to provide, like, provision has a lot of things in it. It's not just finance.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I feel like if you're just looking at financial provision, then you're going to miss out on a lot of, and then I really do feel like there's a lot of Christian men out there who might not be able to provide financially, kind of like, like pastors. I mean, we don't make a lot, right? We can set ourselves up to make a lot. But I'm telling you, you'd rather have me provide spiritually than financially, because that has more of a deeper, like, I don't know, later on it plays great value. Like when you start raising kids, that's something I always talk to people about is, my dad provided for me financially, but he was absent, didn't give me his time, wasn't the priest of the household, right? And so I feel like women can actually look at different aspects of a man providing to really help him out.
That's good. I will say, I will say this to your point. If we had to choose between what we're going to pass down to our children, the faith or money, I'm choosing faith all day. However, I just feel like we live in a world where we don't have to choose. Like right now, if you're watching this stream on your laptop or your iPhone 14, I'm
Yeah.
saying, like, if you work, if you're educated, if you have access to information and all of that good stuff. I know there's a lot that goes into building wealth and things like that, but I just also feel like we don't we don't teach how to help, like, build, like, yo, this is how you make money, this is how you,
Yeah.
like, it's almost like we've accepted our fate, like,
Yeah.
just provide the faith, don't provide anything else, you know what I mean? But I
No.
also want to say something to what you're saying, Moni, because this is another, if we get to another extreme, we'll be in trouble. Men in the church, we've gotten to a point where we feel like if we can provide financially, that we got everything that we need. And it's like, yo, like, some men in the church really think that they're eligible bachelors because they make six figures. And it's like, you're not emotionally intelligent. You don't
Yeah.
read, right? You're not ambitious. Like, you don't have all these other things going for you. You just have money. And
Yeah.
I think somebody once said, sometimes people are so broke, all they have is money. And I think that
Yeah.
that's another thing that we got to talk about, to your point, Moni. I feel like we've also, as men, believed the lie that we have everything that a woman is looking for if we can provide financially. And there's more to a romantic relationship than just money.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, like, yeah, like, it has to be balanced. Like, you can't be lazy. Like, men are not called to be lazy. You got to grind, hustle. But at the same time, I really feel like, because what women are saying now is, all right, I can get it for myself. What else can you provide?
Yeah.
That's the answer we're trying. Because I see it, like, I see it on different conversations. What's
Yeah.
that one podcast with, like, the two guys? Fresh and Fit, like,
Oh man,
whatever.
those guys are
I've been
toxic.
listening to. Yeah, that's very toxic. But the thing is, man, I kind of like. I'm actually, like, trying to understand what these women are saying.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to say, like, I could get it, I could get it, provide something else. And I
Mhm.
really feel like for the men, it's like, man, what else are we providing? Kind of like what you said, like, what else are we providing?
Yeah.
I think part of your development, it
Yeah.
should just be more than just financial,
Yeah. Yeah.
spiritual. And so I think there's a lot to ask from the men, but also for the women, it's like, are you looking at these things?
Mm.
I think the guys in the comments should amen this one too. Are your eyes open
Yeah.
to this reality that I'm right there, But we also get the whole, they're weird, right? They're
Yeah.
weird. Like, what makes us weird? What makes Christian men weird? Like, do you have the answer to this? Like, that's another question I want to
I can tell
answer.
you
Is
why
like,
I was weird. I don't know if Aiden wants to speak to what she thought was weird. I can speak on my weird, but I want to hear what Aiden has to say too.
I'm curious to hear why you thought you were weird, but from my perspective, never, I can't say that I've ever experienced like a weird Christian man. I'd say that they're awkward people, like, period. Within the context of just having relationships in general.
Yeah.
However, I feel like when you mentioned that because women can now provide for themselves, they are also looking for other things for men to provide, to be incredibly accurate. Because before, when you think about the context of like how marriages were set up, it was basically on a, relationship level of like, my parents were doing this thing, or there was money involved
Yeah.
at some level, because he came from money, and your parents were saying that you had to be with him because he could take care of you, essentially.
Yeah.
um, Now, if you're making an income that is enough for you to have your own well-being, make rent payments, take care of yourselves, you don't necessarily like need a man.
Yeah.
So I would have to agree to that. However, I feel like what's missing is the conversation, from my perspective, at least from what I've heard, what I've experienced, is that you're, you're a unicorn. You are not in this circle of men who do this, but I've noticed at least that most men have a fear of approaching women at church. And it's like there are so many people, they find this guy attractive at church and they're just waiting for them to make a move. And that's really where the tension comes in. You don't really get the opportunity to have a guy make the first move, because you have to show interest first because they might be scared of getting rejected, which sucks because it takes away from, um, I guess, just the whole tradition of pursuing a woman. Um, and I've always thought that, like, if you are willing to pursue me in a relationship, I feel like you would be more intentional about pursuing other aspects of the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and I found that to be true in our relationship, at least, because he did pursue me
Mm-hmm.
very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he fights for our relationship to
Mm.
this day.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
just like my 2 cents.
I know you had a point, but can I like kind of ask her a quick
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, because this is from like a guy's perspective. Like with us, yes, I did have to like pursue. I did have to like be bold. However, you open the door. Like there's a like a little door that was open for me to be like, oh shoot, all right, let's keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Man, I I've experienced this before, right? And I know there's a lot of men out there who
But you knocked. You remember that? You
okay.
knocked.
I did knock. But I like there's guys who knock the door and get like like who get destroyed. You know, like and I
Definitely.
want to
That's
speak for
true.
those guys. I want to speak for those guys. Like how does what's the sign? Like I know okay, I know people are gonna say, well, you're a man, you shouldn't have the fear of being rejected. No. Like listen, at the end of the day, we're human, and like eventually you can only get rejected for so much that like you just completely stop.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying like I want to give people practical like advice, right? So when does a guy know that like it's a because remember the whole thing of like are you being creepy or are you pursuing?
Yeah.
Like are you
Jimmy is talking about that in the comment section too. He didn't want to be viewed as harassing, a womanizer, predatory.
literally? And
Yeah.
here's the thing: like I know situations where the girl said no at first, but then down the line said yes. But then if
Yes.
you take that same scenario and try to apply somewhere else, it's like no, a no is a no. But like a no is a no, but then there's still a cracked door open. And I'm like, we gotta solve that because man, I can't try to pursue you, but then at the same time be called creepy. Like we need to define that and give clarity to that.
That was a
Mm,
bomb, bro. There's a lot of thoughts I have on that, but I'd love to hear Aiden's thoughts.
please, I feel like you have been wanting to say something for a minute, so I want
No,
you to.
no. I actually want your perspective because I have the same questions.
um, okay. So here's the thing. I feel like a lot of the times there are women out there who will shut the door in your face when you knock. And from my perspective, I personally think maybe it's a good thing that you got that energy from her
Yeah.
and you should leave the door closed and walk away. Because
Yeah.
who wants to be with a woman who treats other people like that? Respectfully, that's just like what I think.
Yeah.
However, with the whole situation of maybe being acquaintances and knowing the other person within a church setting, maybe not being super close, but being interested in each other and not necessarily knowing that the other person is also interested, I think there are steps you could take to drop hints to show that you are interested without like seeming like a creep, without seeming like a womanizer. First off, if you come off as a womanizer, maybe that's just one reason. Maybe that's not like the first reason why this person thinks you're a womanizer. Like maybe there's a track record.
Yeah.
So if that, I don't think that's like anyone's initial thought right off the bat when you do make that first move. I think a lot of the times people might wonder what your intention are, women at least.
Mhm.
But I think the perfect way to potentially approach a woman is by sparking up a very casual conversation in a group setting where you get to know each other. And then that one conversation happens consistently, maybe over a 2, 3 week period of time. And then it develops into a way for you to potentially get their phone number or social media account and continue to like start dropping hints. So there's like a friendship level. Not really like friendship, but just like a basis of like, okay, this person is not a creep. They're normal, and I would be okay with getting to know them on a romantic level.
So a dating app would be like out of the question.
No, I'm just speaking to the whole like approaching a woman in a public setting kind of
Public
thing.
setting, okay.
But I'm not necessarily sure about dating apps. Are we talking about that now?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, man, what if guys are like, all right, I'm trying to send a DM, right? So they send a DM and
Via
they get
Instagram or
blocked.
dating app?
Yeah, so okay, I got a whole thing about this. Like, I really feel like at this point, everything's a dating app because people, like, for example, for us, like, we use IG,
Mm-hmm.
but technically, it was an app that we used to get to know each other. So even though it's a social media app, that was the platform that we used to like,
Yeah.
start these things, start the thing between her and I. But like, I feel like dating apps kind of like make it very clear, and you can't
That's
feel
right.
hurt on a dating app. Like
No, you can't.
they're just gonna swipe left or right, like like that shouldn't hurt you. However, I really do feel like with you know, like trying to spark up a conversation, like even getting to a point of a conversation for some guys, maybe it's just me, but like that's hard now. Like I can't even say hi to you.
In a group setting,
Like
though.
even in a group
That's
setting.
a safe space.
No, even in a group setting, I've seen it, and I'm like trying to be super real and authentic. Like either like the chick would like I don't know, you try to say hi and you're just being ignored, right?
Yeah.
But then watch this. I've literally seen this happen. 3-4 weeks down the line, it's like they're down to like have a conversation, and it's like this up and down thing. And guys are like not trying to play. We play other games, all right, but like the real ones are not
Bro,
trying to play games. So I don't know, man. Like
bro.
I don't know what the comment section is saying about this, but yeah,
Bro, the
it's
amount
tough.
of situationships that are going on and confusion. There's confusion in the Lord's house, dog. Like
Dang.
like it's really confusing because okay, on one end, if you're confused, she probably ain't it, bro. You should move on. Right? It should never be it should never be that
Yeah.
confusing. But on the real, like it happened to Moni's point, I've been in situations like that where there's a dry spell and then all of a sudden they're really interested. They want to hang out. They want to talk. And you're like, what is this? Right? This is, I thought we were doing something completely different. But yeah,
Yikes.
and I will say too, like, I don't know very many, if any at all, today of relationships that started in real life. Like after 2015, 2016, maybe 2017, a lot of the relationships I know about started off Instagram, straight up. Like Instagram has been the place, or like through a friend. But that's what's difficult is because, and this is even why I asked the question earlier about like being like, serious about your faith and online and things of that nature, because, and Aiden, you spoke to this, like you can't really read personality via text. You can't really get a feel for a person off of their social media page. Like people, like if you look at my Instagram page, you will think all I do is podcast and preach. And it's strategically designed that way. Like nobody knows me. Like if somebody claims to know me because they follow me on Instagram, I have news. Like I have news. Like I am nothing like, and it's not to manipulate people or lie to people. It's just, you guys know this, when you're in leadership, it just comes with the territory. You got to walk in discretion. You got to be wise. You can't give too much of yourself to people. And so, it's really hard to meet people on social media if you're trying to protect the brand. And this is not just for those in ministry. Like I know a lot of people that use social media for work or to build their careers and things of that nature. And it's hard to, and I'll speak to myself. This is kind of like, I wanted to echo what Aiden, you were saying earlier, because I resonated. I grew up really shy. I still am really shy. And I have a hard time. I think it's easier for me to DM a girl than it is talk to her in real life. And a lot of that we don't have time to unpack, but it was, the way I was raised, the culture, the Abisha culture, Christian culture at large. It's just, there's a lot wrapped up in that, insecurities, things like that. But I remember I'll tell this funny story. Me and Israel, we were in Chicago for a conference, a leadership conference. And he was like on me. He's like, bro, like you put in a lot of work. You've been in the gym. You looking really good. Like, I just want to see you engage a girl at this conference. And I literally was like, all right, bro, like, this is what we're going to do. If she's alone and on her phone, then I'm gonna say what's up. And I said that not thinking that would be a reality, because we're at a conference. What girl's going to be by herself on her phone? And lo and behold, we found an actual, like, a girl that was like, yo, she's cute. And she was alone on her phone. And Israel's like, that's your cue. And I was like, nah. Like, we're not going to do that. I shut off. And bro, like, he let me have it. He was so upset with me. He was just like frustrated, bro. Like, if you're not going to say something, how is anything going to happen? And I was like, fam, like, what am I going to say? And part of it is what Moni was talking about, fear of rejection. And Israel is like, fam, you will never see her in your life ever again. And he's right. I haven't seen her since. But like, it's just this, like, there's this apart, let's just like, yo, being really shy. And I think that's like the difference between, men in the church and men in the world. I think something that men in the world have on lock, and sometimes they can get to a different extreme, but they don't know, like, they know how to, like, I had a friend once tell me, she's like, I love guys in the world because they'll just let you know how it is. Like, hey, I'm feeling you. Hey, you're really pretty. You looking nice. And she's like, how come nobody in the church engages me like that? And I was like, y'all want that? Like, I was so confused, but I'm scared, because if you try to let your intentions be out there, it's like, oh, and we have this thing in Christian culture where we love to gossip, and it's like, oh, so-and-so tried to get at me, and so-and-so thought, like, and I'm like, that's another thing you got to be on the lookout for. And it's a whole lot, but in a lot of ways, like, we're not taught how to overcome our fears. And, there's a difference between being meek and being insecure. There's a difference between being shy and being timid. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we haven't been discipled. Men haven't been discipled in such a way that would allow for us to speak up and be unafraid of the consequence, and to know what we want. And here's the thing. I was having this conversation with some friends in LA around dating apps and Instagram and things like that. I'm just over this thing where people are trying to act too cool for relationships. Like, bro, everybody who's single wants to be like in a relationship, but everybody's trying to play it off like they're okay. And we keep lying to ourselves. We keep lying to people. If so-and-so talks to so-and-so, somebody shoots their shot, they're desperate. Nah, they're proactive. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to get married. You don't get married acting too cool to shoot your shot. You know what I'm saying? But, and then we get surprised. Oh, so-and-so's on Jebina. Fam, kudos to them, because they're working. They're doing their part and trying to get married. You know what I'm saying? But that's this weird Christian culture where it's like, no, I'm content. I'm doing me. I don't need nobody. But deep down, you're like, God, like, the biggest struggle singles have, and you guys can speak to this because you're in ministry. Most single people, their biggest dilemma is singleness. Like, more than anything. But like, you're only going to get that in intimate one-on-one conversations. They won't blast that. And in front of friends, they're going to try to act too cool for school and what have you. And men, we fall into that trap. Like, man, I'm not trying to come off as desperate. Man, I don't want to be rejected. What if she doesn't like me? What if she'll say something to her friends about me? And so I know I said a whole lot, but I just feel like we're in a weird place. You know what I mean? Like, we're not being real with ourselves. Yeah.
Bro, you kept it real. I love that. If you're not bold, I always say this, like, think about, like, in life in general, those that are bold usually end up getting something you're always admiring or wanting. Like, if we talk about innovators, right? Let's talk about Steve Jobs, right? He made a lot of bold moves, right? A lot of people said he's kind of like a trash, like, individual, but like, bro, he made bold moves.
Mhm.
Jeff Bezos, bold moves.
Yes.
Elon Musk,
Yeah.
bold moves, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we can learn from these guys and like kind of apply certain values in our lives. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yo, if you want to get married,
Yeah.
I don't care if your friends are making fun of you. You don't be
Yeah.
made fun of. I don't care if you're looked down upon, bro. Be bold, man. Like that's my story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
That's
going back
good.
to how we started this conversation,
Seriously.
man. I got right to the point, like
Got right to it.
and I've
Yeah.
actually like there's some friends of mine that always be like, bro, they'll be like, bro, you move too fast. You're kind of like just saying whatever comes to your mind. But man, can I be honest with you? Like there's a little bit of that you want to like actually keep because
Yeah.
it will benefit you down the line. Like if you just
Yeah.
literally say what you want or act the way you want someone to get something, you always get it. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, thank you for receiving that. I always say, like, I don't know how you did that. And I think we got to talk more about it. It's like,
Yeah.
did my boldness like affect you at all? Like, I don't even know if you told me that, but like, did I scare you? Like, how'd you feel? Can I ask that question? Because
Yeah. I
like,
want to
I
hear
don't
that.
even.
I want to hear the answer to
Yeah,
that too.
like,
I might be the minority in this conversation of women, I've realized, because personally, I don't think it's something that I've ever struggled with, at least thinking like that men are creeps or weird or come off as like womanizers. And me personally, I think I think this is like, I mean, you mentioned it with your friend too. Like she prefers a man who tells her straight up how it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
without like cutting corners and trying to be like cute, or
Yeah.
just tells them, I'm interested in you. I find
Yeah.
that so attractive
Yeah.
because I mean, this is for sure um maybe like a hot take, but I just
Totally
think
good.
that just shows how you are willing to like lead in the relationship as well. If you're willing to say, this is what I feel and this is how I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
um, and I think maybe, just maybe, as Christian men, there could be a better conversation about how you could be more open about your feelings, and how you even think about women in settings where are romantically interested in them.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, a lot of the times we're too prideful to admit that we're looking for relationships, and we just want to be cool
Yeah.
and say, oh yeah, I'm working on me now, or I have a lot of stuff going on, I don't think
yeah,
I'm ready for a relationship. Which
Man.
I think a lot of people do feel that way. I'm not saying that everyone thinks that, but
Yeah.
I do think there's a small population of people who are maybe putting up a front and do want to be in a relationship, like you said, and just aren't, I guess, willing to tear down those walls and admit it.
I feel like people feel that way until who they want pursues them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so because
facts.
I've seen this
That's
time and
so
time again.
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
so real.
I've
Like I'm
seen a
glad you said
I've seen a guy tell a girl like, "Yo, I'm feeling you." She's like, "Man, it's just not my season to date right now." 2 weeks later,
that.
she in a whole relationship. I'm like,
Yeah, facts.
God
That's
changed the script in the last 14 days. Like, what's going on? And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, Sam said something deep here in the comment section. He said, consistent rejection is a confidence killer, and that's true too. That's very
It is.
true. You hear no so many times. It's not just in the context of relationships. It's also with your career that you're pursuing, podcast, church planting, friendship, forming friendships. Like you just hear no enough times, man, and you begin to like leave the door open for the enemy to whisper lies in your ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the older you get too, like sometimes like the enemy's voice is disguised in family's voices and friends'
Yeah.
voices, and it's
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
oh, like is there something wrong with them? Like they're still single? Like is there like do they not want to get married? Are they having a hard time? Like, and it's people start asking questions like, do you desire this? Like, is there something wrong with you? Like, and you begin to wonder, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, is it crazy? Like, all my married friends think I'm crazy for still being single. And they're just like, fam, like at this point, you just don't want it. I'm like, no, I want it.
That sucks because I feel like you are not an incomplete human being as a single person. Like, I
yo,
think that is the lie that we allow, our culture to tell us that,
yo,
just because you don't have a ring on your finger, you don't live with your
Facts.
husband, or you're not, in a committed relationship with someone, whatever it is, you are less of a human being and there
yeah,
must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
When I
yeah,
don't think that's true at all.
not even
I
the
think
slightest.
you can live a perfectly fulfilled life
Yeah,
Facts.
without being in a relationship. If anything, I would say like there are more pros in my, like I would say, like even in the Bible it says that
yeah,
there are more pros to being single
yeah,
than there is to being married,
Yeah.
yeah,
because you can do so much more. Like your time is like endless because you're more focused on things that you can have the time for, whereas when you're married your time is kind of like finite and
Yeah.
there's only so many things that you can do
yeah.
without thinking about your partner. So yeah, that sucks that we grew up in like a culture that has that perception of single people,
Yeah.
because that's not the case at all.
As you were
No.
saying this, it just reminds me of my singleness, like before I met Eden, or like her story too. I wish we could like share that just a little bit
Just go for it.
of
Yeah.
like, man, like if I could just talk about my single season real quick. It's when I turned everything off. I turned social media off. I turned anyone that tries to give me any type of take, I just turned off. And I said,
Yeah.
all right, listen,
Yeah.
um, you're complete. You're complete. You just work on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we're so plugged into everything else, but unplugged to ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, bro,
Mm,
like just stay the course, right?
yeah.
And I say this because there's actually beauty in that season,
Yeah.
even to the point where I was willing for this like thing to be like, all right, it did. Like I got so like the reason I was bold was because I was confident in my singleness. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's
Like
good,
if I
man.
was never confident in my singleness, I
That's
would never
good.
be bold enough to be like, hey, this is who I am. Are you with
Right.
it or not?
Right.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
good.
and that's the thing. Like, it might have scared her for me to be like, "Yo, I'm a pastor and I'm building
Yeah.
God's house. Are you with it?" Like that
Yeah.
came from a place of health that was
Right.
developed in my singleness, and
Right.
and
It's
even
good,
to her
man.
story, the reason she was able to like receive me was because she actually went on a fast and she literally got her priorities straight. And she said, hey,
Mm,
before I ever start dating, I want to make sure I'm right with God. And so because of that health, her eyes opened
mm,
to the man that God
Yeah.
intended for her to have.
that's
So I
good.
wasn't compatible, I was suitable. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Woo. That's a word.
I had to say that. Like
Come
singleness
on,
is
Bishop.
beautiful, man.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
No, that's good.
I can't
Yeah.
add anything to that because he just mic drop. Honestly, that
Kind
was
of
so
spazzed there. I'm
fire.
sorry.
No,
Like I
it's
had to
all
say
good.
it. Like singleness is so beautiful. That's
It
where you get
is.
humbled. That's where it's just a lot of development happens in that. It's
Yeah.
just a beautiful season. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Um,
truly is. It truly
like
is.
even now in marriage, bro, like I'll just talk about it. Like there's days I'll be in bed, right? And she'd literally be out like in the living room talking about, hey, can you make me breakfast? Bro, I don't even have energy to make myself breakfast.
I don't have energy to get out of bed. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I gotta get up and make
Yeah.
breakfast for both of us and vice versa. Like singleness teaches you so much about selflessness,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
It's
man.
in your singleness that you're by yourself. Like that's the
Yeah.
best time to learn
Yeah.
about what it means to live
Absolutely.
for others. So.
Yeah. That's
You know,
so good.
you know what's crazy? I'll say this. The reason why I love singleness, like don't get it wrong. There's a difference between being content and being complacent. I think I'm content. I'm in a season where I'm growing out of complacency and I'm being proactive, whether it's, trying to talk to people, dating apps, things of that nature. But I'll tell you why I'm content, because I got around some married friends. And Moni, to your point, if, single people, this will sober you up real quick. Have some real friendships with married people, and all the Disney happily ever after, that thing fades immediately. I be hearing some of the things my married friends go through, and I'm like, whoo, I'm glad I'm going home alone tonight. You know what I'm saying? I am so glad that I am not married. And this is not to dunk on marriage. To your point, there's beauty in marriage. And there's so many times I walk away from my married friends. I'm like, dang, I can't wait for that. But this is the trap of the enemy. We wish our life away. When we're single, we're like, I can't wait to get married. When we're married, we're like, man, I really wish I maximized my singleness. Right? It's this. And so, yeah, getting around married people. And then if you want to really sober up, single person, hang around some parents with some young kids. My Lanta, like that will. I love Yoni. I've said this in his face many, many times. There are a lot of days I leave Yoni's place excited to go home. There's no crying babies. There's no kids running around, peeing on the carpet, throwing food. I'm just like, yeah, no changing diapers. No, it's beautiful. Yoni has the best kids. I've actually been praying, God, if you give me kids like Yoni, I would be a happy camper.
Yeah.
And they're good, well behaved. They listen. But man, being around them for a little bit and you're like, I can wait.
It puts things into perspective.
It does. And like the lesson I learned over and over again is there is no ideal season. Your ideal season is right now. God is doing more than you think he is. And you are equipped to live life fully. Aiden, to your point, you're not lacking. You're not JV. You're not second class. You're not incomplete. In fact, you are everything you need to be and more. And if God would want it another way, it would have been another way. And so,
that's awesome.
Man, we spent 2 hours on this live, fam. This was good. This was great conversation.
It flew by though. It did not feel like it was 2 hours. I don't know about you.
No, it went quick. This was really fun. I really enjoyed hearing your guys' story and the detail, all the detail. I didn't know all the details. I knew bits and pieces, but I've been really encouraged, inspired. Love to see what God has done in your lives. And I'm excited to see what he'll continue to do in your guys' lives. Thank you guys for being vulnerable and being willing to come on and share your story. That's not always the easiest, but we really do appreciate that. And so thank y'all for blessing us with gems all night long. It was an honor.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for
your platform is definitely a blessing to us. And I think just seeing what you use it for is an inspiration. And I think it's awesome. So of course, we just want to encourage you, please keep it up and don't ever be discouraged to stop because
keep going.
You are helping a generation. Seriously.
You are. Like, I remember tuning in and shaping the culture when I was single. Yeah. And it helped me out during that time. So keep having these conversations. Don't let up. And because I feel like solutions come from conversations, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're creating a platform for that to happen. So appreciate you.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we always say we're not here to answer questions. We're here to ask the right ones. You know what I mean? Get the conversation going. And I love the input I've had from different guests, and tonight's no different. This was fun. It was a good time. And so I'm looking forward to listening to it back because there were so many pockets in the conversation. I was like, ooh, that was good.
Oh my gosh.
People don't realize I'm still doing this 5 years later because I benefit from it. I learn from the guests that I have on, and I feel full each time. And so I'm going to sleep with a smile on my face tonight. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. This was great.
And until next time, family, peace and grace.